Well, hello, beautiful ones. I am Stacey Murphy, the head vixen of the Vixen Academy, and I want to welcome you to my podcast today, where I'm going to be talking about how my need to control led to deep sadness. And I know I am not the only one that sometimes wants to be a little bit of a control freak, right? And if that is you, if you are A-type personality, if you like to be in control of things, or if you are a person that is afraid to take a chance, then you're actually going to want to listen to this podcast. So, for those of you who are new to me and what I do, you can find more about me and my sassy work by going to thevixenacademy.com, where I work with professional women to teach them how to feel strong, feminine, charismatic, and seductive in the presence of high quality men in life and love, so they can be charismatic leaders coming from their feminine energy during the day, bringing home the bacon, and then they can easily transition into that alluring lover at night so they can rock it in their relationships. And this is the secret to having it all, to allowing your relationships to stand the test of time. So if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, down in the description box, there is a link that will take you to my website. And if you would love to join my sassy community, you can go ahead in the description and click on my Love Goddess quiz so you can find out how men see you, and you will get some morsels of wisdom after you take that quiz. So let's kind of hop on into the subject for today. And I know I'm not alone in this in terms of, issues around control. I mean, I know it's something, especially since I suffered for so long with the perfectionist disease, is what I call it. So, especially for those of you who are so stuck in wanting to be perfect, that is another face of control issues, right? And so, let's first kind of ask, why do people want to control anyway? And this is the simplest answer to give to that. It's to avoid pain. That's why people want to control things. You want to control, how things are looking. You want to control the different elements that are going on, either with a person that you're dealing with, a situation that you're in, a circumstance. And because many times it's to avoid pain, and you're also looking for a guarantee in the outcome. So you feel that if you can control what is going on, that is going to guarantee an outcome that you like and that you want. And I want to ask you, many of you that are listening to this, has that really worked for you? Right? Big question mark. Has that really worked for you? And a majority of cases, it does not work, but yet we continue to do it over and over and over again. And we are expecting different results, and then we get frustrated with ourselves. So, you know, as being a coach, I had to work through my own like perfectionist issues. I had to work through my own control issues. And so what happens is this one kind of snuck up on me a little bit, but I'm always peeling back layers of what I call now the blooming onion. And if I in this talk, I may actually get into that a little bit, but if not, I'll share with you later on some other talks of what the whole blooming onion metaphor is all about. But let me share what I experienced most recently. Actually, it was at the beginning of this month, so it was like a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things, the story that I have, it really is centered around my Manifestor Man group coaching launch program that just started earlier this month. And so what happened was, one of the things I was experimenting with, focusing when I did this launch, I wanted to experiment. I wanted to try something different. And one of the things is, earlier this year, I got a realization that I was actually addicted to multitasking. And many of us, especially here in the United States, we are so addicted to multitasking, and we sometimes view it as a competitive sport, right? How many, balls can I juggle at the same time? And I'm like Superwoman or I'm Superman because I can juggle all this shit that's going on. But what happens is, if you look at the research, both psychology, medical, and even from high performance people, they will tell you multitasking is not good, especially for your health. Multitasking also is not good when you're working on very important projects because your brain is scattered. So what happened was, the reason why I was testing this, I was just like a chicken with my head cut off, especially in Q1, the first 3 months of this year, juggling 3 projects at the same time. And then I also had to fire my virtual assistant because she was like totally dropping the ball, which was stressing me out even more. And I was like in massive burnout. And so in Q2, I said, you know what? I'm going to try something different. I'm going to focus on just one thing, which is my Manifest Your Man launch. And I've never done that my entire professional career, just focused on one thing. So it was bringing up anxiety within me, because it's like, okay, if I'm not working on this, then I'm not using my time efficiently. Oh my God, if I'm not working on 2 or 3 things, then I'm dropping the ball in some other area. Oh my God, you know what they say about putting all your eggs in one basket? That was like what I call the itty bitty shitty committee, was like really throwing and speaking and yelling all that stuff in my ear. And so what happened was, I said, look, I'm going to test this out because I want to see if it actually can work for me, because what I was doing was stressing me out. So instead of complaining about it, I said, let me do this experiment. So what I did is I only focused on doing my launch. That was it. Nothing else I focused on for 3 months. And there were times, yes, anxiety came up, and I had to remind myself, all right, remember why you're doing what you're doing. So this is also a good time in this podcast to let everyone know, I want you to go ahead and pull out a piece of paper and pen because there are a couple of things I want you to write down, because I'm actually going to give you a formula of how you can work through the anxiety that causes you to want to control things in your life. Because that's why we control, like I said in the beginning, is to avoid pain. And what happens is we have a lot of anxiety around that. And so I'm going to give you this formula around anxiety, and it actually comes from my Buddhist mindfulness training. It's so stellar with it. And modern psychology actually came from Buddhist mindfulness teaching that's been around for thousands of years. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go straight to the source. So that's how I've been doing these studies, and it's real profound stuff. So here's what actually happened when I did focus on just one thing in my launch. Now, one of the things I must share in terms of what my goal was for my goal was to hit a particular number of students that I wanted to enroll in my group coaching program. And so I had a number, right? We're in business, we have numbers, we have metrics and all this other stuff that we have to hit. Okay. No, that's not anything new. So I was like, okay, here's my number that I want to get for this program. And I had some people that already had done early registration, which was fabulous. So I wanted to add some more juicy goodness into it to have a really robust class. And what was also interesting for this particular one is, in this year of my Manifest Your Man group coaching program, I am actually doing the program along with the students because I am open to receiving a new partner in my life as well. So, with that, here's what actually happened. Now, mind you, I was working on this for 3 months. And what happened was, I didn't get any new registrations in my group coaching program. And that was a first. And I was in shock. I was in dismay because I was getting rave reviews on the training that I did the entire month of June. I had some of the highest live attendance in some of the classes because it was a 4-week series, Get Him to Commit, which is now also available as home study. And so it was great, the energy and everything else. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have a great, robust group coaching program. And no one signed up. But this is what happened instead. So I didn't get anybody who signed, any new people that signed in my group coaching program for Manifest Your Man. What I did get was 3 ladies signed on as VIP one-on-one clients with me, but in my Love Goddess program. Okay. Now they attended, right? They attended Get Him to Commit, which was my enrollment for Manifest Your Man, but they had a different route that they wanted to go. Then I also then enrolled about 4 ladies who did sign on for Manifest Your Man, but it was the home study version of Manifest Your Man, not the group version, which is in the middle, right? So I teach group once a year and I alternate group between my Love Goddess and my Manifest Your Man. So this year it was a Manifest Your Man year. So that's like my middle in between VIP and home study. And so when I sat here, I was like, what was that? And it left me, people going one-on-one and then they were doing home study and nobody signed up for the group of what I was enrolling. It just left me confused. It left me frustrated and wondering what the heck happened, and why and stuff like that, because I had to really sit and think about that. And it really had me in a funk for about, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks in just total bewilderment about what was going on. And plus I was also extremely tired, really, running the midnight oil, doing so many projects, especially without a VA right now. And what happened was I noticed that because I had tunnel vision of what I wanted the outcome to look like, which I told you the goal was adding a certain number of students in my group coaching program. That was my goal, right? So that is what I was fixated on. And that is what I had tunnel vision, right? And so what happened was that is what I wanted. That is what I was determined to have versus looking how the universe was choosing to deliver things to me, right? And so what happened here is I said to myself, I don't feel good. I'm frustrated. And so I said, you know what? Let me tap into my training and the Buddhist mindfulness to get myself out of this disappointing energy and getting myself out of this disappointing feeling, because you can't attract from a place of disappointment and sadness. You just can't do that, right? And so here's where I want you to kind of write this down now, because I'm going to share this formula with you. And in terms of my training in Buddhist mindfulness, they call this emotional elegance, right? And so um, there are like really 4 buckets of real toxic emotions, toxic thoughts that really cause suffering in our lives, right? And so in Buddhist mindfulness, it's kind of put in 4 different buckets. So the first one is getting freedom from anger. The second one is getting freedom from anxiety, which is what I'm going to talk with you and give you the formula here today. The third one is getting freedom from guilt and shame. Those are in the same bucket. And then the last one is getting freedom from depression and sadness. Okay. And so in Buddhist mindfulness is called emotional elegance, but in modern psychology, it's called emotional intelligence. All right. So what happens is, I like the emotional elegance. It really sounds beautiful. And our modern society, modern psychology has taken a lot of Buddhist mindfulness elements, and they've actually taken out any kind of references that are spiritual, esoteric, or anything like that. But that is what makes this so powerful, and why and I'm going off, that's another subject, talking about Western psychology. I'll leave that for another day. But getting back to this one with emotional elegance, here is the formula that I want to give you for anxiety. And then that's the first part. You have to understand the formula. And then the second part is going to be the formula in terms of the solution of how to move through the anxiety, which I work with my clients on. with this as well. And so we really get deeper into it. So I just want to introduce it to you here so you can actually start playing around with the concepts so that if you are dealing with control issues because you are trying to avoid pain, and this you definitely need to listen to. If you are a type of person who wants to have a guarantee about the outcome before you will even take a chance, you need to listen to this as well. And if you are dealing with a lot of anxiety in your life, a lot of worry in your life, you're going to want to write this down as well. So here is the formula for anxiety. All right. So anxiety, the formula is AX, like an axe, right? But capital letters. A is an apple, X is an X-ray, equals AW plus ICSI. All right. So let me repeat that. The anxiety formula is AX equals AW, A is in apple, W is in win, plus ICSI. I is in igloo, C is in cat, S is in Stacey, I as intelligent. All right. And so here is what those letters mean. Now, AX, it stands for anxiety, right? So that stands for anxiety. AX, anxiety equals, and then the AW stands for awfulizing, okay? Meaning it's going to be a catastrophe. Whatever it is going to be a catastrophe. So the AW means you're awfulizing something, turning something and thinking it's going to be a catastrophe. Plus the ICSI stands for I couldn't stand it. That's what ICSI stands for. I couldn't stand it. So anxiety really is this. You're awfulizing something about the future and you're projecting about something that's going to happen in the future, right? And you're then afraid that whatever this thing that you're awfulizing about the future, you wouldn't be able to stand that situation. And that's why you have anxiety. Okay. Anxiety is always about worry about the future. That's always about anxiety. Anxiety is also worrying about an outcome, which is worrying about the future, right? And so what happens is I want you to be sure about where anxiety comes from. Now, here is the solve. And I'm going to actually take you through this because this is what I took myself through. And once I took myself through this, I will tell you what I learned after I took myself through this. So here's how you work through anxiety. Now, on your piece of paper and vertically going down, so not horizontal, going vertically down the sheet, I want you to write A, B, C, D, but with D, you're going to do D1 and you're going to do D2, right? Let me repeat that. So vertical down your sheet, okay? You're going to write A, B, C, D1, D2, all right? So here's what that stands for. Now, A stands for the activating event. In other words, the trigger. What triggered you, right? So in my case, what I felt triggered me was I did not get the results for my launch in my program. I missed my goal. I missed the mark. And part of the goal was not if I missed my goal and the number of people I wanted to register, that also then would mean I missed my money goal as well, my income, right? And so all of this was like the trigger, okay? So A is the activating event. Now I want you to jump down to C. C stands for emotional consequence. That's what C stands for, emotional consequence, right? So in most cases, this is what most people do. Most people say, okay, it was that activating event which caused this emotional consequence in myself. Because I didn't get those registrations, because that person didn't do what they were supposed to do, because that person said what they said to me, you can add on the rest. Because of this activating event that happened, this is why I feel the way I do. why I feel angry, why I feel sad, why I feel disappointed, and all of those things there. Now, here's the problem with that. Okay. There is a problem with that. The problem with this is the activating event is something that is outside of you. So if something is outside of you, you're pointing the finger that the other person or institution, whatever it is, they cause you to feel the way you feel. So what happens is most people, what they do is they try to have the other person, institution, whatever it is, whoever's involved in this, they try to make them correct whatever this activating event or behavior that they did so they don't get mad. So here how it works in relationships, okay? And this is a very, very common one, right? You are out on a date with your man, and all of a sudden he turns and he looks at this other woman as she's passing by, and you blow a fuse and you say, he should not be looking at other women. That is why I blew up. All right. So I want to use a real relationship situation that I hear all the time that women get pissed off about. Right. So let's kind of put it in reality that way as well. And so what happens is, so then we react to that and we say, you need to stop having that behavior. Why are you doing this? That is disrespectful. I'm sitting here with you and you're looking at some woman's shoes or whatever the case may be, whatever it may be, right? Or it may not even be another woman. Say you're going out right now. In some places they were opening up and now certain things are closing back down. Who knows? It's all confusing. But like, say, for example, the Olympics is going on right now, right? And so a lot of people are going to sports bars and things like that so they can watch the Olympics. Say you went there with your man, and all of a sudden you're having like a conversation with your man, and then something comes up on the TV and you're like, oh, and he goes, oh my God. And he reacts to that. And then you get pissed off because you're like, hey, I was in the middle of having a conversation with you. You're not paying attention to me. All right. So I wanted to give two different examples there that usually happens quite often in relationships that makes women pissed off. Right. And so what happens is, and then you want to make that other person change their behavior. And then if they don't change or correct their behavior, you get mad and you're in the place of victim. And that's when you disempower yourselves because you're in the place of victim because the activating trigger is outside of yourself. This is why many times the behavior or the anxiety never goes away because you're focused on the wrong thing to course correct. That's why. So here's where the emotional consequence really comes from. And it really comes from B. So here's what B stands for. B stands for irrational belief. That is what causes the emotional consequence, is the irrational belief. And your irrational belief is the story that you're telling yourself about the event that just occurred. Or like they say in Buddhist mindfulness, the fabrication, right? The fabrication. So the story, the fabrication, or the denial of something, right? That is what truly causes the emotional consequence, not the activating trigger. Right. So the irrational belief is your story. The emotional consequence is how you feel about whatever was going on and how to handle it. So here's how you start to move out of that, because you first have to identify what is the true source of the emotional consequence. And are you focusing on the correct and true source? Right, of that. I don't want to say correct, it's more true. What is the true source, right? And so now that you understand that the true source of the emotional consequence is the irrational belief and not the activating trigger, now you know, let's move on to D1 of, okay, let's deal with that irrational belief. So the first thing you do around the irrational belief is you dispute it. That's what D1 stands for. D1 stands for dispute it. So the way you dispute it is this way. You ask yourself these questions. Is it really happening right here, right now, in terms of the awfulizing, right? So let's put it in relationship terms. So if you catch your man checking out, another girl real quickly while you're together, what goes through your head in terms of the irrational belief? He doesn't love me. He's disrespectful. He's not paying attention to me. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So kind of think of all that, right? So what happens is the first thing you do is you have to ask yourself, is something really happening? So that is what I also had to ask myself. You ask yourself, is it happening to you right now? Okay. Because that's different than asking yourself, is this really happening? Right. And then the other thing is it happening right now? Another question you can ask yourself is, has this ever happened to you before? And you can also, and the last two are the real stellar. What is the best case scenario that can come out of this? And what is the worst case scenario that can come out of this? And the reason why you ask yourself, what is especially the reason why you ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario, is many times when it comes to awfulizing and feeling that you couldn't stand something, is because you don't have a plan. Like if something were to happen, right? And so this is why when in my training on Get Unstuck, thinking about what's the worst case scenario is one of the techniques in there of how to transform fear. Because when you think, oh, okay, here's the worst case scenario of what can happen in this situation, then you say, okay, if the worst case scenario were to happen, here's how I would deal with that. And so you come up with a solution. And then once you kind of come up with a solution to if the worst case scenario were to happen, that allows your brain to relax and you get out of the anxiety because you know, hey, if that were to happen, this is what I will go ahead and do. And then you can relax and be in the moment. Right. And so the first thing you have to do is dispute it. So this is how I went ahead and attempted to dispute what was going on in my particular situation. So what I said was, I was like, okay, well, I said, no, I didn't sign on any new people to the group coaching program, but I did sign new clients and students. So what I did was I was like, okay, my goal was to get 10 more in group, but I ended up getting about 8 more new clients and students. So, hey, I was close in that situation. It was fabulous. I said, so my numbers were almost there, right? And so, because you see how I'm disputing this. And so I said, okay, what did I really get? This is what I said earlier. You have to ask yourself, okay, what was really going on? So then I asked me, what did I really get? What I really got were several VIP clients and I got several home study students. That's what I actually got. So I said, okay, so in terms of numbers, I got 8 versus 10. It is good enough. Perfect. Then I said, all right, let me now look at and see in terms of income, right? So when I tallied up the income, now I did compare my income for Q2 versus Q1. Remember, Q1 is why I was running like a chicken with my head caught off and everything else. In Q1, I was only focused on one thing. And this is what I found out. When I collected all of the numbers and everything else, I literally surpassed my income goal that I even set for Q1. And boy, was I shocked when I did that. Then I went a step further. I was like, what? Then I said, okay, how did I do in the first half of 2021 versus the first half of 2020? And 2020 was a really good year for me in business. Well, this is what I found out. I actually, my first half of 2021 surpassed my first half of 2020. And in a span of 10, 15 minutes of disputing the irrational belief and looking at what really was the case, I found out that, you know, my launch actually did work. And here was the thing, I had tunnel vision because I was controlling how I wanted the outcome to look. And I was only going, my mind was saying to me, success means it has to look exactly like this. And because what I received didn't look exactly like how I was kind of controlling the situation, I was like, oh my God, it didn't work. Oh my God, what happened? And then I challenged and disputed that irrational belief and looked at the reality and came to find out Oh my word, I did way better than I thought. And so I had to open up my perspective of how my my manifestation was choosing to come to me, right? And things like that. And bam. So 2, 3 weeks of going, what? Why didn't this work? What happened? I was getting da 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 and going through the whole itty bitty shitty committee, and then coming to find out, oh my word, it worked stellar. It worked stellar. Now, here's another thing that happened from this. Now, with the ladies that had already registered for a Manifest Your Man before I had done the launch, I had emailed them. I said, well, ladies, well, y'all knew I was doing the launch for Manifest Your Man, and I got shocked and surprised how I didn't add on any other group of students. So I said to them, this is going to be a very, very intimate group class with just the three of us. And one of the students is actually in Europe, right? And then the other one's in the East Coast of the United States, like myself. So here's something else I did for the very first time. I'd never done this before. I said, well, since it's a small group, I said, you know what? I'm going to do this group coaching during the day. It'll be lunchtime here in the United States, which will be dinner time for the other student that is in Europe so that she can come live to the training. And when we had our first orientation, she was like, oh my God, thank you so much for making the time change so I can be here in person. She's like, you have no idea how happy that made me. And then the other student, she goes, I am so happy that you moved this to the afternoon as well, because it then freed up my Tuesday night, which is when I normally do these. And then guess what? It freed up my night as well, right? So I can attend a class, that I'm doing. So it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I had never done that before. And it was like, wow, look how awesome this turned out. Then the other thing that popped in my head was this. I was like, wow, I did put out to the universe that I was also going to do this class with the students. And maybe the universe was like, okay, since you're also going to be doing this, we need to keep the class small so that you, Stacey, can also focus on doing the work along with the class yourself. And when I thought about that as well, I was like, what a blessing. What a blessing. So then D2 is this, you drop it. That is what D2 is. You drop it like a bad habit. Whatever you were having anxiety about, whatever you were commiserating on, whatever the case may be, when you actually see the reality of the situation and what truly was going on, boom, like that, snapping your fingers, you can drop it. And so I went through that. And after that, I was like, woohoo, I did great. I was like so happy and everything else like that. And the anxiety was gone. Gone, 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 gone. And then I was also challenging myself, like, okay, let me work with this a little bit more in some other things. And it was great. So if you're feeling any anxiety or disappointment, I invite you to use this Buddhist emotional intelligence formula, right? Of how to work through that anxiety, how to move through your irrational belief so you can really see the reality of the situation that you're dealing with. Because you may be surprised when you find out it wasn't what you were thinking and that you were unnecessarily putting yourself through the sadness, putting yourself through the pain, putting yourself through the disappointment, like I had been experiencing earlier this month. And if you're afraid to do things because you're looking for a guarantee, let me tell you, swear, there are no guarantees in life. One of the guarantees in life is death. If you are breathing, you will eventually not breathe at some point in your life. So that is guaranteed. That is one, but everything else is subject to change, and everything else is subject to opinion and perspective. So this is why you have to look at what things truly are and dissect that for yourself. All right. So that's what I invite you to do. And if you love what you hear here, I invite you to definitely like this. If you're listening to it in YouTube, share it with your friends. And if you would love to speak with me to see how I can help you, have relationships that will be juicy and affirming for yourself. And first is having that love affair with yourself first. So you can have a love affair with your partner. And so you can also be in love with life. And so I'm giving you a little bit of a preview of some things that are coming up in terms of expanding what being in love with life truly is. So I'm giving you a little teaser on that one. So that's what I have for you, everyone. You know how my need for control led me down this like itty bitty shitty path, and how I know I'm not alone, but how you can also use that formula so that you can get freedom from whatever is disappointing you, and you can truly see the reality of the situation and you can move forward with joy. And with that, everyone, we are complete, and namaste.